Welcome back to another Henry video. Shop Dog's come to see what I'm doing. Been in here all day, putting things together, pulling things apart. I've got the main Holly harness pulled apart because we are going to go ahead and use our fused location for the fuel pump. So this is 15 amp for the fuel pump coming off of our fuse block. It makes it nicer for repairs downstream. So we've pulled the relay off. I haven't decided where I'm mounting the relay yet, but I've got that's the coil wire. Gonna need that. This is both sides of the fuel pump relay. This side is the switched ground. This side is just turn on with the switched ignition. This is switched ignition. It's the exact same wire going into the computer to let it know when it's on. They're going to be fed from the 12 volts going to the HEI, which of course is why I've got the cap on, but the wires were in my way. So I yanked the wires and just labeled the cap so I don't have to remember for right now. But then that brought me down to where do I want to run the fuel pump wire? So that's that big heavy blue one laying here. I'm really starting to think about maybe mounting the fuel pump relay up in here, so right against that wall. And if I do that, well, then the wire's in. So then I said, well, crap, I better start figuring out where that hole's gonna have to be. So to do that, I had to get two different sockets, because for some reason we got two different size lugs on here, and get this tire off. And now I'm crawling back under here, remembering, oh yeah, there's not a lot of room here. So at this point, I just got to find my wire bundle. It's up in there somewhere. And also look way up in here and figure out how on earth do I even reach those lights. I've never even looked at them yet. So I'm going to have to figure that out. I think I'm going to just make its own harness and then bring it down and have a connector somewhere for the lights so that the lights can be disconnected. But chances are pretty good that I'm all wrapped in wire, that we're going to be right back in here somewhere for going outside. I can't get back in that back hole back there. There's just no realistic way. So I'll keep working on that, but I figured, well, I might as well take a minute and shoot some video on Shop Dog's board. So, okay, there's a little chunk. Oh, wait, before I do that, the other thing is I did order a stud for a distribution point, and it's going to go here. It's it's similar to this idea, but bigger, because then I can take these two feed wires with their fusible links, one from the alternator and one to the body, attach those to the stud, put a nice heavy, number 8 or number 6 wire over to the battery, because the battery will have these kind of connectors like I put on everything, but I only want the battery cable, the fans, the computer, and then a heavy cable going over to distribution on it. So that'll work out pretty slick. I've been trying really hard not to drill any holes I don't have to in this car. Unfortunately, when it comes to the light harness, which right now is laying right there, I've been looking in here, and I think at some point I'm going to wind up with a couple holes here along that fender. So what I may do is small holes where I can tape the Christmas trees on here and just have it pop in. So we'll see. I'll have to talk to Harlan about that. Unfortunately, I'm not just going to let wires flop around, but I don't want to drill any holes I don't have to, especially since, everything's all shiny and painted, and, you can see, here's the other side of that. Here's our little brake line set up. So, there's 50 choices that always have to be made. But, yeah, and we'll pull all that. And then this is the fuse for the ECM. So, and I know that there's some on the block that could be used, but it has been my experience that you really need to hook the Holley fuel injection up right to the battery, especially the fast stuff. It won't even work. You'll pick up too much noise. But we found out way back when we were working with this terminator, if you recall, I have this distribution block here, and we did try feeding the terminator from that at one point, and it never quite ran right. And then we moved it here, and that problem went away. So I no longer pick up random, probably random spark events is what I imagine. Can't wait to work on this, but it'll be a little while yet. But here, yeah, this is coming along slowly. Yeah, a couple things have been sorted out on how I'm doing it. I am using one of my bases because I really don't like the ones where the relay actually is screwed in. I like it where you can pop them out. Luckily, you know, I stock these Tyco bases. So I've got that ready for the fuel pump wire, which is that tan one that you may or may not be able to see. I'm looking for a spot up under here that I can mount it. Then I'm going to take this blue fuel pump wire, bundle it with this rear body harness, and boy, it isn't easy moving this box forward, but I got it. But it turns out there is all kinds of room back there, and it'll be above the license plate flipper. Not a bad spot, honestly. The other side would be just as good, but looking at that, I'm going to take a pull-through grommet. So when I get to where it needs to be, everything comes through, put a little silicone in there, and you do a wrap around it, and then I drill the correct hole size with a hole saw, and then you push all your connectors through, pop it in, water stays out, fumes stay out, which is probably the bigger thing with this car, and we actually get out in a good spot, because that is, and ShopDog's showing us where we got to go, but that location there is right there. So that's definitely where we want to run that, because that or the other side, both are pretty good locations. I want to do one more verification that the flipper doesn't cause problem. I pulled out my wire harness for the fuel pump and the sender and their associated grounds. So, and God, you can see the fuel system here. There's just not a ton of room under here. And now that we're laying under here, you can kind of see how that works as well. So that's those little housings. So I think it won't be the worst. I think that top screw on those is going to suck, but I don't think it was going to ever be easy anyway. Certainly not on the floor. But then that's what all of this is about. So we'll get it. I mean, it can't be the end of the world, right? ShopDog is doing his job to clean here, and we have located where we're going to drill. You can see it in that flat right there. I have checked. It's going to clear this no problem. So, you know, it'll be right here, you know, right there. That's where that'll come through. I'm going to go ahead and do a 1.5 inch hole saw, and we'll go from there. I think that's going to work. So I've got her routed and run along and through that hole. Now let me go get my light that I set over here for some reason. So I've got the hole drilled. I have all the wires pulled through so that I can figure out where things got to be. The beauty of this hole is it's big enough that I can pre-terminate. So I can pre-terminate that connector. I've already checked to make sure it will fit. That is the fuel sender and the fuel pump and their grounds, which realistically are probably going to be out here somewhere. I got to figure out what I want to do for grounds. And then I will do a connector for the lights, and then build a harness that goes between the two lights and then plugs in, you know, back up in here, and a connector for the license plate flipper that hopefully you guys are seeing. Hopefully nobody's throwing up. So, yeah, and that blue tape's where that grommet's going to go. So I can have everything pre-terminated before I put it in the car. That'll be really nice. And then just hook up some grounds and connect a few connectors together. I've still got to build that taillight harness. I've got to decide what connector I'm putting on the license plate flipper. The flipper is going to self-ground. It'll be hard mounted to the chassis, so there's no reason not to. So I'm going to just take and do its ground here. But here is its B plus and ignition. Anytime the ignition is on, the license plate comes down for visibility. And anytime it's off, it folds up, just like on the S10. So, yeah, I actually feel like I've accomplished something. I've done things a couple times. We're never going to have reverse lights. It's just not going to happen in this car. It's not set up that way. So, I've got a green wire going from here to here that I'm probably going to repurpose as something to do with the power seats, now that it's up there, because I've got my pretty heavy feed here for the power seats, but now that we've got the seat heaters too, I got to run some calculations and see if we're going to be fine or not. If not, I've got an extra wire, so this is going to come up here. Here is where I'm going to give the interior guy access to courtesy lights if he wants to add, a light back here or anything like that. At least he'll have it, but I'll put a connector on there and just tape it up to the hump. But yeah, so the fuel pump relay is floating right now. It's just up in all that mess. But now the ground and the ignition source from the computer to run the fuel pump relay is here. This is still, the main feed for the car. Here is the actual ignition source going out to the coil, and we're going to use that to also trigger the sniper. And of course the coil wire for the Dakota is also going to be hooked up to the coil wire here. So pretty soon we'll start looming this in. I don't know where this is going to go yet. That's going to really be dictated by the way that all this goes. So I'm working on that. And then of course this goes straight to the battery. This ground goes straight to the battery. We've discussed that in the past. This is the CAN bus connector. I'm not worried about that. One of these is O2 and one of these is, well, this one's a super. So you got two expansion harnesses, and I think O2 is actually already run down. So we're getting there. Yeah. And then for the ground on this one, I'm probably going to ground it right to the block and then do a couple real heavy ground straps from the block to the frame and from the frame to the body. The car is going to really want good ground, especially since I just remembered, while I'm working back here, the ground for the subwoofer and everything. So all of that's got to happen. Have not figured out where that wire is coming out yet. It's realistically going to be over here somewhere. I don't know how with that heater down in there, but we'll figure it out. There's a solution. We just don't know it yet. Yeah, so unfortunately that was about the only place we could put a battery in this, because originally when this project started and I wasn't even involved yet, that battery was going to be buried up under the behind the wheel well over here, and that's just a nightmare mess. I don't like when people do that. Don't hide the battery. You need access to it. If for no other reason, you don't drive these very often. You're going to need to charge it. Also, you're really going to have to keep cleaning terminals. Don't put it in the, well, if you put it in the trunk, put it in a battery box with a vent. Do it correctly. But don't bury something where you got to take half the car apart to get at the battery. That's ridiculous. So, and this was, the fuel tank had to come out, if I recall, originally. And then we changed the fuel tank, and then now that didn't have to happen. But yeah, it made no sense. So this is where we're at right now. ShopDog says it's time to be done laying down. We got to go get cleaned up because we have to go to supper. So what do you say, Mr. ShopDog? Ollie? He said thanks for watching, but he'd really like to go outside now. So thanks for watching. And remember, even ShopRex needs to pay attention to what he's doing.